You're not trying to think anything strange. Then one thought appears. It feels wrong, unwanted, and somehow not like you. So why did your own brain make it? For a second, nothing in the room has changed. You might be washing a glass, looking out a window, lying in bed, or holding your phone. Then a sentence flashes through your mind, or an image, or an impulse. It is not something you chose. It is not something you agree with. It feels so out of place that your body reacts before you can explain it. And then the second thought arrives. Why did I think that? That second thought is often the one that makes everything feel heavier, because now the mind is not only noticing an unwanted thought, it is judging the fact that the thought happened. It is turning a mental event into a question about identity. What kind of person has a thought like that? This is where intrusive thoughts become so uncanny. They happen inside your own mind, but they can feel as if they do not belong to you. They can feel foreign, sharp, almost inserted into a normal moment. And because they appear in the same private place where your real wishes, memories, and decisions appear, it is easy to confuse presence with meaning. But a thought appearing in your mind is not the same as you choosing it, and it is not the same as you wanting it. Your mind is not a quiet room where only approved ideas are allowed to enter. It is more like a generator. All day it produces fragments, warnings, memories, guesses, simulations, associations, and mistakes. Most of them pass so quickly that you never build a story around them. A random phrase, a strange image, a half memory, a worry that appears and disappears before you can inspect it. But some thoughts do not pass quietly. Some thoughts hit something sensitive. They touch safety, or morality, or love, or religion, or responsibility, or the fear that you are not the person you thought you were. And when that happens, the thought gets flagged. It stops being background noise and starts feeling like evidence. This is one of the most important things to understand. The alien feeling is often not proof that the thought reveals your hidden self. It may be a sign that the thought collides with the self you actually care about. Researchers have known for a long time that unwanted intrusive thoughts are not rare. In 1978, the psychologists Stanley Reichman and Padmal De Silva published a classic study called Abnormal and Normal Obsessions. The important idea was not that everybody has obsessive-compulsive disorder. They do not. The important idea was that many people without OCD still report unwanted, intrusive thoughts that can resemble the content of obsessions. Decades later, a large international study led by Adam Radomski and colleagues looked at unwanted, intrusive thoughts in university students across many countries. The researchers found that the overwhelming majority of participants reported at least one unwanted intrusion in the previous 3 months. That does not mean intrusive thoughts are always harmless. It does not mean they are easy. And it does not mean everyone experiences them in the same way. But it does mean that the raw appearance of an unwanted thought is not by itself evidence that something is wrong with who you are. So why can the thought feel so unlike you? One reason is that your mind can generate thoughts before your reflective self has approved them. Think about how often your mind wanders. You sit down to do one thing, and suddenly you are remembering a conversation from years ago, or imagining an argument that has not happened, or replaying a mistake, or hearing a song fragment you did not ask for. Psychologist Kalina Christoff and colleagues have described mind wandering as part of a larger family of spontaneous thought. In simple terms, the mind is always moving. It is not only responding to commands, it is exploring. Most spontaneous thoughts are not disturbing. They are ordinary mental weather, but intrusive thoughts feel different because they arrive with emotional force. They do not just drift by, they interrupt. They seem to point at something important, and the mind has a bad habit of assuming that importance must mean truth. But importance is not the same as truth. Alarm is not the same as evidence. Imagine your brain has a threat system whose job is not to be perfectly fair. Its job is to notice possible danger, possible mistakes, possible violations, possible loss. This system is useful. It helps you catch errors, protect people you love, and avoid harm. But it can also overreact. It can flag a thought not because the thought is meaningful, but because the topic matters to you. That is why intrusive thoughts often target the things a person cares about most. A careful person may get thoughts about making a terrible mistake. A loving person may get thoughts that attack love. A moral person may get thoughts that feel morally contaminated. A person who values control may get thoughts that feel out of control. The thought feels alien because it is not aligned with your values. The shock comes from the gap. In clinical language, some thoughts are called ego-dystonic. That just means they clash with your sense of yourself. They feel opposite to what you want, believe, or value. The term is often used when talking about OCD, but the plain English idea is useful here. A thought can feel painful, not because it reveals agreement, but because it creates conflict. If the thought truly matched your values, it might not feel so disturbing. But because it feels wrong, the mind starts investigating it. And that investigation can become the real loop. The psychologist Paul Salkovsky's helped shape a cognitive model of obsessions that puts special weight on appraisal. Appraisal means interpretation. It is the meaning you attach to an experience. In this model, the intrusive thought itself is only the first event. The second event is the meaning the brain gives it. The thought appears. Then the mind asks, "What does this say about me?" Then the body reacts with fear, guilt, disgust, or urgency. Then the person tries to get certainty. Did I mean it? Could I act on it? Does this prove something? What if I am secretly dangerous? What if I never stop thinking this? The mind begins trying to solve the thought like a puzzle, but the more it checks, the more important the thought feels. Attention becomes a spotlight, and anything under a spotlight looks bigger than it is. This is where another concept matters: thought-action fusion. Rahman, Roz Shafran, and other researchers studied the way some people experience a painful shortcut between thinking and doing. Thought-action fusion can mean believing that having a thought makes an event more likely, or that thinking something unacceptable is morally similar to doing it. Most people would not state this belief calmly out loud. They may know, logically, that a thought is not an action. But emotionally, in the moment, the mind can act as if the boundary has blurred. The thought appears. The alarm says, "What if thinking it means something?" And now the person is not just afraid of the content. They are afraid of their own mind. That fear often creates a second strategy: suppression. Do not think it. Push it away. Prove it is gone. Make sure it never returns. This sounds reasonable, but mental control can behave strangely. In a classic study by Daniel Wegner and colleagues, people who were asked not to think about a particular target often found that the very effort of monitoring their mind kept the target active. Later reviews have shown that the details are complicated, and suppression does not work the same way in every context. But the broad lesson is still useful. Trying intensely to not think something can make the mind keep checking whether the thought is there. And checking is a form of remembering. To make sure the thought is gone, the brain has to search for it. To search for it, the brain has to represent it. And once the brain represents it, the thought can feel present again. So the person concludes, "It came back. That must mean it matters." But sometimes it came back because the alarm system kept asking for it. This is the strange trap of intrusive thoughts. The mind treats the thought as dangerous, then tries to control it, then notices it more, then uses that repetition as proof that the thought was dangerous. A mental event becomes a self-feeding loop, and modern life can make this loop easier to start. You live in a world that asks you to monitor yourself constantly: your productivity, your identity, your morality, your health, your relationships, your search history, your screen time, your every reaction to every headline. Even ordinary anxiety can begin to feel like evidence that something hidden is wrong with you. So when an intrusive thought appears, it lands in a mind already trained to inspect itself. Why did I react that way? Why did I think that? What does it mean? Would a good person have that thought? The question sounds responsible, but sometimes the question is the hook. This does not mean intrusive thoughts should always be ignored with a shrug. If unwanted thoughts are constant, deeply distressing, connected to repeated checking or avoidance, or interfering with your life, it is worth speaking with a qualified mental health professional. OCD, PTSD, anxiety, and depression can all involve intrusive mental experiences, but they do not all work the same way. A professional can help sort out the pattern, but for an educational video, the key distinction is simple. The appearance of a thought is not a diagnosis. The shock of a thought is not a confession. The recurrence of a thought is not proof that it is important. Sometimes a thought feels unlike you because your brain is detecting distance. It is noticing that the thought clashes with your values, your intentions, or your sense of who you are. The very fact that it feels wrong may be part of why it feels so loud. This is why the phrase, "my brain made this thought," can be more accurate than, "I secretly wanted this thought." Your brain generates possibilities. Your attention selects some of them. Your body reacts to some of them. Your mind assigns meaning to some of them. But none of those steps automatically turns a thought into truth. There is a difference between a thought and a wish. There is a difference between alarm and danger. There is a difference between mental noise and moral evidence. The next time a thought appears and feels strangely unlike you, the most important question may not be, "Why would I think that?" It may be, "What did my brain just mistake this thought for?" Maybe it mistook it for a warning. Maybe it mistook it for evidence. Maybe it mistook it for a verdict on your character. But a thought is not a verdict. It is an event in the mind. And sometimes the reason it feels so unlike you is that the rest of you is already saying no.